A series of papers that are sort of interrelated. The Central City Revitalisation Action Plan, the Central City Residential Program Project 8011 and Development Forum Terms of Reference, or 8011, I think I like that better. So if we can...
Have we done it, haven't we? Now?
Sorry, have I...
26.
Yep. Have I forgotten something?
Enliven places.
No, but we're going to come back to these. I've got an obligation this afternoon and I'm going to have to leave, so I'm just doing these ones first, and you'll have to elect someone to take my place. Would you like to chair the meeting after I leave? Good. Excellent. Vote for Vicky? Yep. Okay. Right. Okay, shall we... Is there any particular order you want?
I'd simply suggest that we ask questions on 25, 26 and 27 probably at the same time, and it might be that they're effectively a bundle of papers. 26, the Residential 8011 program is a subset of the Central City Revitalisation Action Plan, which is paper 25, and the Development Forum Terms of Reference, which Jamie might wish to introduce, is one of the mechanisms to give effect to a revitalised Central City and provide and exercise governance over the program. Okay.
All right. So we'll just look at the group of papers, so that's 25, 26 and 27. So do people have any questions on any of those papers? Yanni? Jimmy?
Thank you. I put it ahead of prior to the meeting, but there is a reference to an SGS report that Regenerate Christchurch had done around the economics and the planning. Are we able to get that or have that circulated? Because it seems to be quite an important underpinning document.
So the current state assessment is part of the bundle that you've already got. The SGS report, we're requesting that from Regenerate Christchurch. Okay, and we're likely to get it, or we don't know? That obviously you made that request yesterday evening. We're onto that, so we'll get back to that.
Okay. And just in the council's own Share an Idea Central City Plan, we talked a lot about social and affordable housing. Is there anything in the review and the reflection that's supporting us actually doing something in that regard?
In Project 8011, one of the project areas specifically addresses supporting the Central City offer and bringing diversity and innovation to the housing delivery, which is about alternative housing approaches, affordability, social housing, etc. would be part of that project.
Sorry, is it specifically mentioned?
In the project scope?
Yes.
Can I also just note that part of the Project 8011 work, we're also there's also an action around looking at land holdings in general, acknowledging that certainly for council there isn't necessarily a lot of that, but there is a piece of work, and then looking at incentives, the range of incentives that might encourage different forms and types and tenures of housing is also part of that program.
It talks about alternative development and housing tenure models. It doesn't talk, as I see it, about the development of social housing in the Central City.
So this is on page 115 and 116 of your agenda, just so everyone else is on the same page. I think John's answered that question. Is best we can. We're talking about diversity and innovation to housing delivery.
And if you actually look at page 116, key stakeholders are Community Housing Aotearoa, New Zealand Housing Foundation, Aotearoa Community Housing Trust, charitable sector, etc., etc. So it is about different options for building housing, which would include social.
Yeah, I mean, I just wondered if it could be more explicit on page, or on our Share an Idea plan. It was noted that Council has 116 complexes throughout the city which have sustained damage. This provides an opportunity to consider relocation of some of these properties closer to Central City for easier access to facilities and services, which obviously makes a lot of sense. So I support getting people living in a city, but it would be nice to see that there was encouragement of social housing and affordable housing being part of that explicitly.
I don't think we disagree. I think the mechanism for that is slightly different to this. If you wanted to have some of the development of the next tranche of social housing occur in the Central City, that would be fantastic. But I don't think this is the best mechanism to achieve that. You've got probably some alternative mechanisms, given that the council is one way or another funding that.
Yep, Phil?
Thank you. I think it's a really good start. And I'm just wondering on the next stage of development, if in fact some particular population groups we might be able to develop facilities for. I guess for the city to be thriving for young people and for young people to be involved in a central place too, if that is an area which might still be able to be developed.
Yes. Within the Central City Action Plan, there's still room. It is an outline to explore other ideas that focus on particular groups. You know, the opening of Hoyts in the next month or so will be an important attractor, but other projects that we might come up with through, for example, the Enliven Places project, to trial and test things, maybe things that will add things. And we've just attended the expo of the strategic priorities around this, and there was some good feedback through that. So we'll take away ideas from that.
I also think there will be an opportunity as we refine and put more detail behind each of these high-level actions to engage with the various youth groups, the Youth Council, the Pacific Youth Council, to continue to get their ideas and understand what will make them come into the Central City, whether that's to live, to shop, to use their leisure time, whatever.
Yep, Jimmy?
4.2, you particular mentioned.
Which one?
4.2.
On what page?
Page 35.
What? 35.
35. You particularly mentioned Christchurch-NZ and Regenerate Christchurch, early engagement with sensitive groups and the private sector stakeholders. Just want to know, except the field he mentioned earlier, like the youth council group, or maybe the resident association, this group, my understanding is still quite a few new kind of the entrepreneur they invest in the Central City from multi-ethnic, multi-cultural group, whether they have opportunity to be informed regarding to this draft, the kind of the Central City action plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is a draft as it is today, and prior to the report coming back in its final form via the development forum, we'd be looking to engage a far wider group of stakeholders, including the ethnic communities in the Central City, ethnic communities and other diverse communities within the Central City as well. And we've made a specific mention of residents groups and residents associations and things like that. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dion?
Is this a good time to sort of add something in or make suggestions as well?
Yep.
Oh, cool. In number 3, I'm just looking
Sorry,
at
which paper are you referring to?
I think it is this one, isn't it? Yes, it's the action plan. So I'm looking at page 100 of the agenda. Number 3, improve the condition, safety and accessibility of streets, public spaces in the Central City. Can we, I think you guys know where I'm going to come to this. Can we actually explicitly put somewhere potentially in that around the gravel sites within the central city? They're really detracting from safety and from the amenity value.
That's in one of the resolutions. The central city.
Are we doing the action plan or the project 8011?
No, we're asking questions on all three papers.
Oh, okay, cool.
But just now I've lost it because which paper we were referring to.
I think there was something within the Central City residential program.
Yeah, but there's an amendment. The Development Forum has asked for. Can you lift up that 8011? Yeah. So it's got. Can you go to the Development Forum recommendation? Okay. So if you look at 6, so I'm assuming that it's the Development Forum recommendation that will be moving. Requests DCL and the Chief Executive to report back and provide advice to the Development Forum within 3 months on a range of tools, incentives and disincentives for land banking, undeveloped land, giving timeframes for each action to fast-track residential development and the regeneration of the central city to assist in achieving the goal of 20,000 people living. So it's to actually fix up those sites as well and look at all the tools.
But the reality is that we're going to have some of these sites in the city for some very long time.
Yeah.
What I don't want anymore is in the core of our central city any of these gravel pit car parks. So I mean, whether they stay car parks but they're sealed and actually respect the rest of the amenity value of the central city. I just think that might be a good place to put it.
So there is a piece of work already underway, early work looking at working with, in particular, Wilson's, but others also, to improve the amenity of those sites, and we are always looking to work with. Vacant site owners to look at how we can better activate those sites, and that's an ongoing program and funding that you've provided in the long-term plan.
Yeah, but what I want is I want us to put an end date to allowing gravel sites in the central core of our central city. I think we need to just be pretty blunt on this and say there needs to be a date where no more gravel pits in our central city, end of. Like, I'm not talking about within the 4 hours, but just within the areas bound by where all the rest of the work is, and actually, start actually lifting the game of our central city. Because I think that's, if you look at the life and, the survey that came out, what was that one called?
Can I make a suggestion there? And I'm sorry for interrupting, Dion, but I think it's a good conversation to have.
But how do we get it in this?
Yep. If I just finish, I think it's a good conversation to have, but I don't think the place for it is the terms of reference for the forum. I think the discussion for it is at the Development Forum, and totally agree with you. But I think that we can continue this at the Development Forum.
We do need advice, and things are going to come back. And what you're asking for is specific advice on. I'm just wondering which one of the papers it would go into.
Well, I'm looking at page 100. There's action for change.
It's not a part of a resolution. So which particular paper is it?
We would consider that it's already part of number 6, the resolution up there, with staff coming back to you on the range of incentives, disincentives for land banking, undeveloped land.
But how about ensuring, putting in after undeveloped land, ensuring amenity of sites within the CBD?
Yeah, we can absolutely.
Because you're already doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we don't want to inadvertently trip ourselves up with what for the foreseeable future is still a permitted activity. By rushing to what the solution could be, it might well be that we get to the same place with some either incentives to develop or disincentives to leave as undeveloped gravel car parks.
So I'd just note in the action, the skeleton, let's call this the skeleton of the action plan, in the purple box, amenity and activation, we've got two high-level actions, get creative with vacant sites, and also enliven places, which is around improving amenity, add interest and activity. And I would see those as being the hooks under which we would develop more detailed pieces of work and actions that what you're talking about would sit under. I'm pretty comfortable with the messages that we've heard, and that the high-level points are there for us to pick this up and take it forward.
No, but I think they're getting the point where I want to see those sites tidied up.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone.
It's a big problem that I think we need to address within the central city.
Are there any other questions? Because we'll go through them one by one. Phil?
I wanted to ask some questions about the Central Development Forum terms of reference item.
Yeah.
So I just wondered about the membership aspect. So this will be page 123. So the first bullet point there is that the forum would co-opt additional voting members for a specified time period. I'm just wondering about the possibility of that leading to precedent for other committees, and have we got any precedent for that happening for our council committees? For example, I don't know of any current council committees where co-opted members would have voting rights. Clearly there are some who don't, and that's referred to in another bullet point. And I'm just wondering about if in fact I've missed something, or my question is, will this potentially create precedent?
They can only make recommendations to council.
Yes.
So,
it's a forum, so it's not actually a committee. So when they say
It's also the status quo.
Yeah.
Around the action plan and prioritisation for recommendations to go through to council. Yeah.
So where I was perhaps confused is that there would also be non-voting members. So I would have thought if it's a forum, then all members at the forum would in effect have a vote.
The only thing is that the intention around the non-voting members is, if you look at the membership breakdown, there are the elected members, which will now be the committee of the council. There are the invited members, which are the representatives from key organisations, which are, the repeat offenders, so to speak. They're the big ones that we know of and we see often. But then from time to time, we'll bring in non-voting members, because we don't need to bring in a whole army of people for issues that aren't relevant to them. So if, for instance, we're looking specifically at residential, we'll be bringing in perhaps members of, those developers that have been involved in residential development, people, project managers in that field, but they're not needed to be at every single development forum meeting. So it's a meeting by meeting approach, I guess, and that's the intention around that, is that we want their input because it's valuable, but we're not going to request them their presence at every single meeting when their knowledge or their expert knowledge base doesn't have any relevance to the items we're considering.
And the other point too is that the subcommittee, you'll have subcommittees of the development forum, just little action committees to get things done and bring it back to the forum. So you don't, it really is designed in this way to be engaging of all of the councillors, recognising the importance of the CBD, and then also enabling of setting up of smaller committees just to go away and do the work and bring it back. I just think this is about ensuring this forum is focused on action for the next, till the end of the term.
I've got no problem with that at all, but it just seems to me that with the non-voting and voting members, that it would be, in my view, it would be better for the function to be to make decisions by consensus, and not necessarily everybody would agree, and then that would overcome this problem. That's what a forum can do.
Yep. Well, I mean,
through Jamie, it tends to, doesn't it, Jamie, when decision
100%.
making?
Yeah.
My chairing style is always very much consensus. It's just because there are some standing orders. We have a movement.
Really, I can't recall it
shapes
voting. So.
Never. We never have. And it's really just. It's kind of like, remember that example of the Gang of 38, where they, in San Francisco, where they engage with members of the community and also council. And I think that's what's quite appealing about this. It's a JV committees with the private sector and community as well as elected members. So we do make decisions by or recommendations by consensus.
The substantial change to this is the bringing of the residents' associations into the mix, which I think is fantastic.
I'm all for it, but in terms of membership, why don't we today amend this to say, in fact, the members the forum would attempt to make decisions by consensus? Simple.
Yeah. I just want to know the implications. Essentially, that's how we do it anyway, as part of decision making. We sit around the table and reach a consensus, and if there's some contrary views, then we try and find some middle ground. But that's sort of, we do that with every committee. I think you chair that way as well.
Jamie's charming leadership style leads it that way, and people just land on the same place. But
it's now on the record now, Dean. I appreciate that.
But yeah, RAs as other stakeholders would be great.
Who's going to vote for you?
I think it's deliberately flexible in terms of who can be involved. We want action. All right. Okay, so let's go through each of the papers. So the first one. Oh, sorry, Yanni.
It was a question I put through to staff. One of the really interesting things reading through the regeneration report and the analysis is the impact on unconstrained growth into the greater Christchurch area and the impact that that's had on the central city. So the information clearly identifies the issue, but there doesn't appear to be any clear action to address it, particularly in light of the future urban development settlement pattern work that we're doing. So is there a recommendation or an action that we should put in response to that? That would be helpful.
I think the
sorry, I voted for public engagement deal, just to clarify.
So the central city, in terms of the residential offer, if you like, in the central city, is going to face competition from everywhere in the city and in Greater Christchurch. So the greenfield areas, but also the existing suburban area and the redevelopment that's going on across Christchurch. So if we accept that we operate in an environment where people can exercise their choice on where they want to live, therefore that really becomes the challenge for us is to make the central city the most attractive choice and get people to want to live in the central city in preference to living elsewhere if the central city suits the lifestyle they're looking for.
I was more thinking of appreciate that people should have choice, but by being permissive in terms of urban sprawl, we create a donut in our central city. It's not very, it doesn't. I just wondered at what point do we say actually we've got sufficient land, or we've got this desire to have people living more densely in the inner city, and therefore we don't need as much land being rezoned to, because at the moment it's having a really negative impact, which the research seems to show from here quite clearly that the land use is being too permissive and we're not getting the results we desire in the central city. So I would have thought at some stage there should be an action around being a little bit more restrictive or not as permissive.
Could we make it more reinforcing? And if you go to the Central City Residential Program recommendations, item 2, go back. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Yep. Okay, so number 2 is notes the increasing residential activity in the central city is a current strategic priority and has been a consistent priority for the city and Greater Christchurch for many years, as reflected in the 2007 Greater Christchurch Urban Development Strategy. Notes that the importance of a prosperous and vibrant central city to the success of the sub-region has been recognised by the Greater Christchurch Partnership Committee and Chief Executives Advisory Group and is a priority for the future development strategy currently being prepared by the partnership. Since which time we are aware that there may be some changes to the future development strategy draft before it goes out. So maybe we want in here noting, so change it to noting the importance of a prosperous and vibrant central city to the success of the sub-region, comma, and that has been recognised by the Greater Christchurch Partnership Committee and Chief Executives Advisory Group, ensure that this remains a priority for the future development strategy currently being prepared by the partnership. Does that pick up your point?
Yeah, I mean, I personally would like something stronger, but that's, if that's what we can get, then that would be good. Yeah.
We are, of course, briefing the Greater Christchurch Partnership on Friday about this program of work, and maybe the mechanism to achieve something stronger would be a council decision when the draft FDS comes to council.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a tidy provision here, though. It's making it clear that we're sticking to the intention that's always been there, that this is a Greater Christchurch central city, doesn't just belong to the city.
Yeah, absolutely, and it has been formally recognised as such by and reaffirmed in the recent months by the Greater Christchurch Partnership, and obviously we've had the mayors and councillors of both Selwyn and Waimakariri come to us recently and reaffirm that the CBD of Christchurch is, of course, the CBD of Greater Christchurch, and they recognise and support it as such.
Yep, thank you. All right, so the first paper is the Central City Revitalisation Action Plan. Do I have a mover and a seconder? I have Dion moving, Jamie seconding. Is there any discussion?
Yep.
Tim, Phil, Dion and Jamie.
Thank you, and I've said it a number of times.
Actually, it'd be Jamie, Dion, because I think you moved it, so you'll end it.
Do you want, just a suggestion, and it's your call obviously, but do you want us to speak to all three of them in one debate? Because it's essentially all interconnected.
Okay, so
I'm happy to do.
Are all three happy to move all three? I mean, the mover and seconder?
Yeah, very much so, please.
Okay, so are we going to speak to all of them at once?
No, just do it in one go.
All right, so Tim.
Thank you. I've said it a number of times, and with regards to on page 37 under strategic priorities, we've about events kind of enhancing and that type of thing within the central city. We mentioned Hoyts before. If you really look at Hoyts, if people come in on the bus, they go to Hoyts, there are 17 food outlets. Remember, those 17 food outlets will be in competition with other food outlets already in the city. So people could actually go to Hoyts, go to the movies, go to get fed, leave on the bus again, and there'd be absolutely no activation for the entire central city, no retail, etc. So we've got to be careful, I think, how we go through. If we look at New Brighton, I went out there a number of times, got a fantastic playground, absolutely outstanding. You go out there, it's busy, flat out, wonderful library. Go 50 metres into the mall, go 100 metres into the mall, God forbid you go 300 metres into the mall. Where's the activity? Where's the activation? We've got to be so clever and careful going forward. A lot of the events that are held in the central city are at night. They are absolutely successful, but keep in mind you have 10,000 people turning up for Festival Lights or Botanic Delights. Car parking is adequate, but not for 10,000 people in one hit. So that's actually a negative side of things that people see under pressure, and then all the retailers close when they're there at night. So we've got to be really clever and careful in how we activate. We used to do some very simple things in the city. We were, without question, leaders in this country at doing what we were doing with those small events and their activation and focusing on why we were doing them. So I think we've actually got to stop, take some breaths and really look at how we can maximise the central city easily, and there are some real cost-effective ways to do that. So I will support this without question, but I do think we've actually got to be really clever and maybe revisit what we did in the Cathedral Square 20 years ago with the gang issues that we had, and also the times when we were going through and the central city was dead. It's not a new phenomena. So yeah, I'd be really careful to how we go forward.
Phil.
Thank you.
And thank you for this report too, because I think it brings together a lot of excellent work that's been done, not only by our own council staff, but also it's really cross-agency. So clearly Development Christchurch have had a big hand in helping pull this together. And I think it's really timely, and the information in the report is really timely too, because as Chamber of Commerce indicated to us earlier today, we're really on the cusp of development, and it can go one way or the other. And I think our decision earlier helps it head in the right direction, but also the projects which are also lined up, including the town hall, the other major facilities in the report. Turanga's coming on stream very soon, and Hoyts has been mentioned. And I think Hoyts is a good example of what will cater for hundreds of people, including young people. But I'm pleased that as a draft, there'll be development, or certainly consideration for development for our young people in our city. I think we know that the current market doesn't really provide for young people. An example that previously did, of course, was Science Alive. But there has to be an alternative to the pubs for young people to attract young people to come into our city. But I'm pleased that there is plenty of scope in the development of this paper for that. So altogether though, I think the paper also does encapsulate that need to have a real drive to have housing in our central city included. So there's a section there called Doing the Groundwork, and I note that besides business attraction, alongside that is housing delivery. So I think altogether it's a very good paper and gives me a lot of hope for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie?
Speaking to all three of these there in the recommendations, and obviously the Development Forum's recommendations on the terms of reference for the Development Forum, which is just to include DCL and also put some timeframes around what we're requesting. Speaking to that as a whole, the importance of the CBD truly can't be underestimated. The success of our city on the whole will largely be defined by the success of the central city. So if our central city is failing or fails, then our city is failing or fails. Now that fact can daunt you, but I think as a council we acknowledge that, we accept it as the ultimate challenge, we recognise the opportunity, and we're going to roll up our sleeves and play our part to address this head on. So the central city is the metropolitan melting pot of the whole city. It's the poster child both domestically and internationally for Christchurch. And why the heart of a city is so important is no one visits Rome because of the great malls. You know, they exist and they actually do quite well, but it's the culture and the history and the buzz of the city that will draw you there. To put it another way, if you want to spend a weekend over in Sydney, you don't jump on What If or Trivago and search for Sydney suburbs. You want to be in the heart of it. You want to be in Sydney CBD. And the fact of the matter is, they do have great suburbs. And if you go there, you'll probably visit Paddington and Surrey Hills. But it's the heart that will draw you in there. So I guess the point that I'm making is that if we don't have a strong heart, nothing else is ever going to work. That is the foundation for the success of Greater Christchurch, both the outlying suburbs and also Canterbury as a region. And I think the likes of Selwyn and Waimakariri are most certainly cognizant of that fact. I've said it earlier today, but at the crux of it, it's not actually the public sector that rebuilds the city. We'll play our role, hopefully effectively and efficiently, to act as the catalyst to provide leadership and certainty for the private sector. But by doing that enables them to get on and do what they do best. So some aspects are within our control and some are not in our control. And if you've read the recent JLL report on central city development, where they mention a number of the barriers that are holding us back, they include cost of construction, cost of land, amenity value, parking, consenting, to name a few. So some of those we can address, some of them we can't, and some of those we can affect indirectly, and we're up to that challenge. What we do know, though, is that what we're doing currently is not enough. I believe this council really does understand the gravity of that situation, though, and that gives me a lot of comfort. There's no silver bullet, but the residential component, I believe, is the closest thing you will ever get to that. That brings in the critical mass, and with critical mass comes greater investment, comes reinvestment, and the creation of amenity value. So I'm very supportive of the three items that we have here in the recommendations, and I look forward to tackling this challenge head on, because I do not believe that there is a more important issue for Christchurch right now.
I'm going to wind up with Yanni.
there's a lot of really interesting information in all of these reports, and it's quite hard, having all this just at council to really get into too much detail. But I think what's really disappointing and clear from the current state assessment by Regenerate Christchurch is that the two key things that people wanted through Share an Idea have largely failed to be delivered. And that was about people and place and environment and ecology. It's so disappointing that the environmental aspects of a new city born out of the post-earthquake opportunity has failed to be met. And, without quoting, going into all the details that's in here, it does make it really clear that we've missed the opportunity hugely around a sustainable, modern, green city. And I think that's a real shame. It's certainly, I think, as council, it wasn't a lack of trying through this council. I think there's a lot of other reasons why that didn't happen, which was mainly to do with the previous central government. But I think also the key thing is that there weren't even indicators set up to measure that, which just seems appalling. So, let's move forward and learn the lessons of what's failed in terms of the blueprint. I would question how successful it's actually been. If it wasn't for huge public sector investment in bringing government departments back into the inner city and buying up land, you would really have to question how much other development would have happened by the private sector. And it seems to me one of the lessons should be that the cost of putting public projects on private land is a recipe for disaster, for delay, and for economic irresponsibility. So there's a lot of really interesting things in these reports. I hope that the focus on the environment and the social doesn't get lost in all the lingo and jargon that's put in place. I think it's incredibly important that we do go back to Council's original Share an Idea and Central City Plan that talked about the importance of having social housing in the central city so that people could access the services that were more accessible, and hopefully in time we can address it. But I agree, just having the current approach is really not leaving us in a very good situation. And one of the most significant quotes from this report is that there was a best of project approach rather than a best of city approach. And for some of us that have been around since the first earthquake, it's been really disappointing that the number of times that people like the former councillor Tim Carter and I raised the idea of synergy with our anchor projects as being really instrumental for the good of the city, that wasn't taken on board. And I think you've seen some of that in the stadium debate that we've had earlier. So I welcome this information. I think the more inclusive we can involve people in the solutions to addressing the problems, the better we will be. But it is a pretty damning picture of the blueprint and its failings around getting a green, modern, sustainable city for people.
Thank you. Dion, wrap up.
Yeah, one of the sayings that I've been saying a bit around is, do we want to be known as a city of great suburbs, or do we want to be known as the great city of Christchurch? And Christchurch, the second largest city in New Zealand, has an opportunity to actually be that second city of New Zealand, to actually, Auckland is going to go through some massive challenges into the future. Where's the alternative? People want to live somewhere, and we're already seeing people moving to Christchurch to take up the opportunity. It's cheaper to live here. There's opportunities abound, but we need a central city where people will want to go and where that economic heart will actually pump and thrive for the region. This paper is really good. I mean, one of the the report from Regenerate Christchurch really does paint a pretty grim picture of where things are at the moment. But it also says there's a massive opportunity to actually turn this around, show some leadership as a city, and actually go, look, Christchurch has all of the markings to actually be that second city of New Zealand, and actually take the opportunity and take it in hand. The amenity and activation light up the city. That's really important, and actually what I was saying before, putting Wilson's on notice almost to say, you know what, the central city is not a car park in terms of these off-street gravel pits. It's actually a place where people are meant to be. the growth, the prosperity, the economic viability of the city. You know, how do we start attracting head offices back to Christchurch? We lost a lot of those in the earthquake, after the earthquake. How do we bring them back? Bring back that employment, bring back agencies and all those kind of things where people can actually start growing their careers here, learning and then moving forward in that respect. And then the people part, so the other part, the Project 8011, I mean, this is absolutely vital. I mean, everybody keeps saying, let's do what we can to get people living back into the central city. Now we actually have some focus on this. Now we've got to sort of show that city leadership, which is the first part here. And the Central City Forum, which is going to be repurposed, which is the other paper here, it's really, really critical that the Central City residents who have already invested in the Central City are part of this. And this is really critical. I actually think this is probably the most innovative part of all of this is actually the Central City Residents Associations. Those people who are living here are actually going to be part of the decision-making process, part of the process, and also all of the developers and investors can be part of it. Then we can get buy-in collectively, ownership of the outcomes, and actually people will then have a sense of pride in their city and actually, you know, do the things that we're saying that we're going to do. And that's the last part, getting it done. And so I was elected on let's get it done, so let's go do it.
Excellent. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much.